Welcome back to Tech Uncapped. Today I'm talking with Nora from Alba Health, a company using gut microbiome science to predict and prevent chronic disease from childhood. We get into the science, the startup journey, and a few gut health fixes you can steal. All right, well, Nora, thanks for joining Tech Uncapped. I'm very pleased to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's dig in and start by hearing your origin story.
Yeah, so I started Alba Health about 4 years ago, and it really started from a personal experience because, well, I've always been interested in science. I studied biotechnology, molecular biology, pharmaceutical design, and engineering. So that's always been an interest for me. After studying, I went to Boston Consulting Group. So I was in management consulting for 5.5 years. And when I was about 27, 28 years old, I suddenly became very sick. So I started to have this very, very severe eczema on most of my body. So it started on my wrists. It went up to here on my face. It was down to my ankle. So at some point, it was pretty much everywhere. And my life turned into a nightmare pretty much because I couldn't wear normal clothes anymore. I had to wear special clothes. I was scratching at night, so I couldn't sleep. I was really sleep deprived. It was very mentally taxing to live with that because I was so restricted. I couldn't work full time anymore. So can you imagine, just being young and having a great career, being able to, travel, to have a lot of things going for yourself, but all of a sudden you can't do all of those things anymore. You just have to think about, how do I get through this? How will I live like this for the rest of my life? Because that's really the question when you have a chronic disease. So a lot of people, and it's really frustrating when you have a chronic disease, people are like, oh, if I were you, I would go to a specialist. Of course, I went to so many specialists. It's not that easy, right? I went to doctors all over the world, and they all told me you have a chronic disease. Eczema is a chronic disease. So you can only apply creams and try to moisturize and use steroid cream, and there's not much else to do. So at that point, it was a terrible time of my life because I found myself being young and wanting to do a lot of things and just feeling like I will have to live like this for the rest of my life. How is it even possible? How can I do this?
Yes.
So I started to look up for other solutions. And just like many people with chronic diseases, I ended up in Facebook groups, talking to strangers, trying to find out what else I could do. And then I went back to my scientific background and I started to read scientific publications and trying to understand, what else is out there for me. And I came across quite a lot of research connecting our gut microbiome and skin and eczema. And the whole topic here is that eczema is an inflammatory condition. Inflammation starts somewhere in the body. It can start from the gut microbiome, so imbalances in our gut microbiome. And for everyone to understand, the gut microbiome is the collection of microbes that we have in our gut. Some people call it the gut flora, the gut microbiome. So I really found so much research connecting the two and showing that an imbalanced gut microbiome could lead to inflammation and could lead to eczema. On top of that, it could lead to all main chronic diseases because it seems like all main chronic diseases start from inflammation. Even aging can start from inflammation. So that was really fascinating to me. And of course, I knew it a little bit, but this really prompted me to look more into it. And I tested my gut microbiome. What I found was that I had a lot of imbalances in my gut microbiome. And I thought, could this be it? So I think back then, no one really knew how to change the gut microbiome. If you go to most doctors, they say, oh, we don't really know what to do. We don't really know if there's a solution. So I started to come up with an approach myself. And I tried a lot of different things. I experimented with my diet for a long time. Eventually, what I saw is that all of my symptoms went away. And that was at the same time that my gut microbiome changed. So I tested again and it was better.
Yes.
So that was transformational for me. It was almost like a miracle because my eczema went away. Imagine, being sick and then all of a sudden you feel good. And
Mm.
and at the same time, I had a lot of other small symptoms that maybe I didn't really pay attention to. I had acne. It went away. I lost weight. I felt better. I felt more energy. My mental health was better. So everything kind of improved. And the, one of the first things I thought was, wow, this is really powerful. This could help so many people because
Yes.
today, 1 person out of 3 has allergies or an allergic disease, so eczema or allergies. And 2 people out of 3 in the US has a chronic disease. But just in general, there's a lot of people out there. It's not really documented how many, but there's a lot of people out there that have some sort of chronic symptom or condition. So that got me interested in the gut microbiome. And then next thing I asked myself was, just as a curiosity, would it be possible to completely eliminate and end allergies and eczema and chronic diseases? Is it possible in the same way that I reverse them? Is it
Hmm.
possible to erase them completely? And I found out something very, very interesting because I tried to backtrack. When was it that I became like this? What happened? What took me there?
Yeah.
And I found out something very interesting, a breakthrough in science that happened a couple of years ago, which says that what happens in your childhood in terms of your gut microbiome, your food, your exposures can shape up your health for the rest of life. And if you test the gut microbiome of a child, so already in the first months of life, you can predict the chance of allergies and even obesity and weight later in life. I thought that was fascinating because I thought, what if we can shape up good health for every child from the beginning of life instead of having them go through my situation and get
Hmm.
to chronic diseases later on? Another fascinating thing that I read about was that actually it's very worrying, is that today everyone living in industrialized countries, we lost 50% of our gut microbiome diversity. So because of antibiotics, because of ultra processed foods, because of modern lifestyle, we are losing gut bacteria compared to people that live in the Amazon or compared to our
Hmm.
ancestors. And a lot of scientists believe that that's why chronic diseases are increasing. But there is something even more scary, which is that now in the US, 90% of babies have lost some microbes that are necessary for the immune system. And that puts them at higher risk of allergies, eczema, and asthma.
Yeah.
So that's crazy, right? Because right now, 40%
Yes,
of
it's
kids have
quite worrying.
allergies.
Yeah.
So many kids have allergies. It's becoming more and more prevalent. So it really seems that kids are lacking this gut bacteria early on. So what I did is that with these kind of pieces of information that I thought fascinating, and I thought, wow, if this is true, there's millions of babies being born with
Hmm.
imbalances that could lead them to what I had and to my situation. So I quit my job at BCG at that moment, and I started to speak to scientists all around the world. And I found this one scientist that made this discovery. So he discovered that if you test the gut microbiome of a child, you can predict health later.
Hmm.
He has over 900 publications in gut microbiome science. He made some of the biggest discoveries in gut
What,
microbiome.
what is his name?
Professor Willem de Vos,
Hmm.
and he has 900 publications. He's one of the most known scientists in this field. And when I told him, my overall idea is that if we can help parents take care of their kids' microbiome, we can set them
Yes.
up for a healthy future. If we can help people repopulate their gut and
Hmm.
contrast these loss in microbes, perhaps we can improve their health. And he immediately bought into that. He said, yes, there's enough science on this. There's enough. He had one of the largest studies in the world on this, on
Hmm.
kids especially. And we said, okay, let's start Alba Health together. And we made a partnership with his study. And then we launched our own study. So we were the first and only company in the world to do a longitudinal study where we
Hmm.
followed people over time and we collected gut microbiome samples over time. That was mainly in kids. After that, we made partnerships with a lot of other universities, a lot of other studies. We put together a team with 1,600 publications. And we basically decided, okay, let's bring all the knowledge from the top professors in the world and all the data from these big studies and from our own studies. Let's give this knowledge to the average person. And we built a gut microbiome test. At first, it was specifically for kids. Now we have it for all ages. But what's new about it is that it uses a new technique to analyze the gut microbiome called shotgun metagenomics. It's like whole genome sequencing, but for the microbiome. So it just analyzes everything in the gut. And it was the first time that really this was brought to people.
And
Today
you said it was called shotgun metagenomics?
metagenomics, yes. And today we couple that with a consultation with a certified nutrition and health coach, and we also couple it with an AI advisor. So you can really explore your gut microbiome. You can get recommendations on recipes, on foods, and you get everything that is known up to now from science on the gut microbiome on your results. So that's what we do at Alba Health. And the journey has been crazy because we raised 5 million. We're backed by the founder of Aura. I've been all around the world talking about this topic, even at the Brian Johnson conference, at the World Economic Forum. We do webinars now for over 20,000 people in the past few months. We won 4 awards, and we've been growing a lot, about 10x in the past 12 months. So there's been a journey, and it really started from my personal journey and trying to bring those same insights and discoveries to as many people as possible.
Yes. I mean, it's a great story. Must be, first of all, like when you're ill, you do everything in your power to get better, specifically if it's a severe illness, which is, of course, sounds like that was the case for you. But then to build on top of it and build it into a company is just simply a very amazing and inspiring journey. And I think for me, and probably also for a lot of people listening in, it's hitting close to home. I've had allergies and eczema like my whole life. I'm definitely gonna try out your solution. My wife as well is suffering from a chronic illness, and I have a 3-year-old toddler. So I think if I could in any way figure out both how we can get better as adults, but also avoid issues for our daughter down the line, that's something that I would be very keen to look into. So well done on where you are today. And like you got how did you get to meet the founder of Aura? And for the listeners that don't know necessarily Aura, it's what you say best, it's a wellness tracker. It tracks your biometrics. You have it on a ring, and then there's also a company called Whoop that does similar stuff to that. So it's a bit of a different application, just a ring versus a wrap. Or what do you call it, a wristband. But yeah, they are Finnish based. And how did you get in talk with the founder of Aura?
The first year that I started Alba, I spoke to, I think, 500 people. So the first thing I did was to speak to as many people as possible. Yeah. And I started to just share my idea, what I had in mind, what I wanted to do. And I asked pretty much every person that I spoke to, who else do you think I should speak to? So a lot of people ask me, how did you speak to so many people? How did you meet so many VCs? Because I pitched to a lot of VCs. It was about 250 VCs that I pitched for my first round. So everyone asked me, like, did you know them before? No, I didn't know a single person before. But what I did is that I started speaking to some people that I knew, and then I asked each single person, who else should I speak to? And they will introduce.
That sounds like a killer advice to when you go out networking and fundraising. Just instead of having a hard ask and give me money, or who should I talk to?
Who should I talk to? Exactly. It's very powerful because if one person introduces you to 3 people and those 3 people introduce you to 3 people, very quickly you get to an exponential Excel sheet with names.
Yes.
And that's how I got to the founder of Aura. A lot of people say, oh, how do I get to him? And they try to get to him directly. But sometimes if you just shoot a lot of bullets everywhere and you try to speak to as many people as possible, you will be introduced organically to some people that will be business defining that you might not have had on your list. So I'm a big fan of, at all times, expanding your network and trying to be in different rooms and trying to be in different groups of people, and then asking those people, who should I speak to?
Yeah. And so yeah, so you got an investment from the founder of Aura. As mentioned, you were talking around, then you finally got into the room with him, and were he sold right away, or did it take some convincing?
No, actually, it happened right away, and it was a half-hour call.
Okay.
And I thought I was meeting him just as a fan because I love Aura. I had it for so many years, and it was
Yeah.
such a big important part of my journey recovering. So when I met him, it was more like, "Oh, this is my story. Thank you so much for everything you do." Like I had no idea he was thinking of investing. And then at the end of the call, I told him what I was trying to do. And by the end of the call, I was like, "Oh, but are you also like investing? What's your process? And what's, how is it from there?" And he was like, "Yeah, this is my process." And I'm in. And I was so happy. I mean, it was so unreal.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's awesome. Half an hour call, and then that's kind of best case scenario. I guess with a strategic investor, which you could call this, there's also like when you get investors, of course, the first thing is, can you get any money for your startup? That's any startup's concerns, right? But then there's like tiers of who do we then get in as an investor, and having a strategic investor is often a really attractive thing to have because they can open even further doors, as you said. You get and talk to the right people, open the right doors. Would you say that that has also been the case with having him on board?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think he helped with his network, with his experience. However, I do think that one of the biggest um, pieces of value that a person like that can bring, or any entrepreneur or angel can bring, is their support and their mentorship. Their just the fact that they've been through a similar journey, that they've seen a lot of challenges, and
Yes.
along the way you need emotional support, you need someone to tell you everything is fine, you need someone, like I find myself needing more this kind of mentorship and personal guidance than I find myself wanting some like hard requests around, I don't know, checking an Excel.
Okay.
I think it's more about that, about like mentorship, emotional kind of support, guidance, and introductions and credibility. A person like that brings tremendous credibility and
Yes.
to the company.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, it's the if you can get a strategic investor and they are willing and able to help you, but also support you like that, that's like best you can get. So awesome to have that in your business. Then you also were invited to speak to the Don't Die Summit with Brian Johnson as one of only 22 people. Can you tell us a bit about that experience?
Yes. So back then, I would say Brian Johnson was less known. He was
Mhm.
just kind of starting out. But still, he was quite known. He made the press headlines and everything. And I was following him because, of course, like I'm interested in health and health optimization. And so I was just checking out what he was doing at that time. And then I noticed that he was going to do a summit for the first time. And I thought, oh, it would be really cool to go there. It was in San Francisco. I was very busy. I had a small startup. I had a lot to do, but I was like, I work all the time. I would really love to be there and just see what's the latest in health and longevity. And then I noticed that they had some applications open to have speakers. So I thought, oh, imagine if I could speak there. That would be really cool. So I just applied. And apparently, Brian actually saw my slides and saw the topic, and he immediately understood that this is a thing. Like, he was aware of this topic, which is something that most people don't understand, don't know about. So imagine back then, so all the first year of business when I pitched, I heard a million times, this is not a thing. Gut microbiome is still in its infancy. No one, and we still don't know much about the gut microbiome. We don't know anything about the baby microbiome. This is like kind of, they were a bit looking at me like, you're just making this up. It's not a thing. While it's a very, very established concept in science, especially the fact that the gut microbiome shapes up health for life and later in life. So a lot of people questioned that and didn't really believe it. But Brian Johnson was the first person that actually gave me a stage and believed in me because he knew the topic. So I became a speaker there, and that changed everything. That changed everything because all of a sudden, all of those VCs that were looking at Brian Johnson like he's a legend and, listening to his advice, they see that he personally invited me, and I met him, and I met him many times, and I met him also last year. So that, they saw that he invited me, that he validated this topic, that he knows about this topic, and that he actually knew about us, and he thought what we're doing is very important. And since then, I've been invited by many other big people in longevity, and I got to know them. But he was the first one that really gave me a stage, and that changed a lot for me and
Yes.
for Alba.
And I guess he's also since then become just even more present, and maybe you could say he's the almost the figurehead of longevity today. If
Yeah.
you say longevity, you'll probably connect it to Brian Johnson. For the people that don't know who he is, he became very known by this you could say extreme approach to self-experimentation on how to reduce his own age, and with the ultimate goal of being not dying, being immortal, so to say, basically breaking, considering that aging is an illness that you can find a cure for instead of just something that is inevitable. Whether he's going to be right in that quest, time will tell. But it has also brought in a lot of people that are very critical of him, and he's very polarizing. And some people are, skeptical because he spends 2 million a year on his own treatments, and other people are pointing at, oh, his blueprint is just like a money machine, and so on. But he already made very successful business in the past as well, so there's no doubt he's a great businessman. But what's your take on his approach?
When I first started following him, I was a little bit skeptical, I have to say. I was not so, I was still kind of watching what he's doing. But then when I met him, first of all, I understood he's a brilliant person. Brilliant person. I met him several times. He's very smart, obviously. Beyond what I expected. He's really a visionary, and I personally think that what he's doing is very important for health and longevity. He pretty much helped shift our world towards health optimization. So what he's doing is incredibly important. I'm a big supporter. I like him a lot, and I
Yeah.
think he's very positive. Of course, one thing to keep in mind is that his approach doesn't resonate with everyone, especially women. Or, not everyone wants to live like him. So I think that his way is not the only way. I think his way is one way and one approach that works and vibes well with some people. But there's also other approaches that fit better with other
Yeah.
people and are still as good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people probably get triggered a lot by him because it's like people's own lifestyle, and oh, do I need to change everything? And whether it's for processed foods or alcohol, or just living unhealthy, that's kind of something, an uncomfortable truth that
Yeah.
means that people get quite triggered by it. I also find him very inspirational. I follow him, but like as with everything, anybody I follow, it's not like a zero or one. I take elements. I do modeling. There are things that
Yeah.
inspire me that I take from him, like is the sleep, getting steady sleep, and these type of patterns around going to bed and getting your sleep is like it's very simple, but it works. And then just being a bit more mindful about what you eat, and being a bit moderate with your lifestyle. I think those things are just quick fixes where you don't need to
Yeah.
completely copy his entire playbook, and you still get good results that work for yourself, and makes you feel better and give better energy. So I think he's by far for me also a very a very a good figure in a space that might also be dominated by bad actors, lobbyists of big pharma and big food. We see that fight as well
Yeah.
in America with RFK as a health secretary now, and you know there are big money and big interest at these very processed, very unhealthy foods, unfortunately. So they're going up against a very powerful industry.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, yeah, the thing is, a lot of times I speak to people and they're like, "Oh, how did I get here?" Or some people say,
Mm,
"I eat very healthy and I'm okay, but I still have allergies, or I still have this, I still have that." What I usually say is it's not your fault. Like
mhm,
it's not your fault. You're living normal. You're picking up things that are at the supermarket that someone checked for you and
mhm,
have been approved and are on a shelf, right? You're doing your best and you're living in our world in a normal way. The problem is that what is normal today is not necessarily the best for your health, because what is normal today has been shaped by capitalism and by certain incentives that
mhm,
incentivized us to produce processed food because it has higher shelf life. It can stay in a shelf for a really long time instead of
mhm.
fresh food, right? It can be produced, mass produced. It can be produced cheaply. It can stay in a packaging. It can have a lot of calories, so it kind of uh, satisfies people faster than a fresh fruit. So
Yeah.
um, ultra processed food is more profitable than fresh produce. That's how it is.
Mhm.
So that's why when you go to a supermarket, it's dominated by ultra
Yes.
processed food. So our economic model brought us here, and we are we're just living in the world in the best way we can.
Mm.
But we just need to understand that what's around you is not necessarily the best for you. It's
Yeah.
what's profitable and what our system produced. But there is a better way, which is to start understanding your body. So now we mentioned Aura. I think it's more than 100 million people that have a tracker or a wearable today.
Mm.
So a lot of people today track their exercise, track their sleep. Why? Because we know that exercise and sleep are important for health and they correlate with good health. I think that in the future, or in the very near future, people will start tracking their gut microbiome and really looking into their diet, because diet is really the most basic pillar of your health. It's your fuel, right? It's what you put in yourself every single day. And
Yes.
a lot of people say, yeah, okay, but then I already know what's good food. Actually, what we see at Alba is that, first of all, 70% of people, we did a survey in the UK and we saw that 70% of people can't recognize ultra processed foods correctly. So
Mm.
a lot of people don't fully understand that what they're eating is ultra processed food. A lot of people we see that they think, oh, I eat overall healthy, but they don't understand that some of the things they consume regularly are ultra processed foods and they have risks. But also, a lot of people lost some classes of bacteria. In particular, there's one class called bifidobacteria that is correlated to the immune system and to mental health as well. So more and more people are losing those, especially kids, but also adults. And that can have consequences on your health. But there are ways to increase it. I increase mine by fivefold. So you can increase those classes of microbes selectively. So that's one of the things that most people don't realize. and can really, really help. What we see is that 93% of people that do our test and go through our process feel better, more confident in supporting their child's health or supporting their own health. And 85% plus see measurable improvement in the gut microbiome and see a positive daily impact. So they say, my life is like on a daily basis better.
How granular can you go? So it sounds like with gut health, the microbiome test, you can actually go and very detailed see what you get that is not good for you and what you should get that would be improving it. Is that correct?
Yeah. So one of the most specific and personalized things is about probiotics. So we know that there are some probiotics that can help some people very, very well. So there are some probiotics that have over 20 clinical trials and can help reduce eczema, improve constipation, even with they can help with allergy prevention. They can help with digestive issues. They can help with IBS and bloating that now affects a lot of people. So there are some probiotics that can really, really help. But you need to match them, first of all, to the right person and then to the right diet. So it's not enough to take a probiotic. If you take a probiotic, but then eat ultra processed foods every day, it's not really going to work. So you need to match it to a correct diet. So what we see that is most granular and personalized is you, based on your lifestyle, based on your gut microbiome, because we also take a very long questionnaire about health. You will benefit from this probiotic and from these changes, specific changes in your diet. What we see that really works well is having the test that can open your eyes to your status, number one. Number two, to have a plan. Number three, to speak to a coach and make up actual, get the quick tips. That's the things that we see works the most. Like getting those tips that takes 2 minutes or 1 minute that you can do on a daily basis. And then number four, we have our AI advisor. So you can ask for 1 minute tips. You can ask for recipes. You can ask for feedback on your meal. You can say, oh, I'm eating this. Is that good for me? And it will say, oh, add this, add that. So what we see is that making very small tweaks to your diet can have a very big impact. So it's not about suddenly cooking 3 hours a day or, changing your lifestyle drastically or following a meal plan, but it's more about small hacks, and it's a lot around increasing the amount of fiber in a person's diet. We know that 96% of people today don't eat enough fiber. So it's increasing the amount of fiber and specific fiber, because some people think fiber is whole grain bread. It's not only that. And some people benefit from other types of fiber. So it's becoming like quite granular with that.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's also quite necessary because you do actually feel quite blind when you go into the supermarket. You might think that you're buying something that is like not processed or it's fresh meat, but then again, what's been put into the meat, how have it been put through of chemicals? You almost never know. And I think at least like I'm normally in a lot of other aspects, I'm a very let's not have too many regulations, not have too many laws and so that inhibits us from inventing and doing business. But here, I'd say that's probably one of the places where Europe is getting it much more
Yeah.
right than in the States. You hear the stories about people going from Europe or to the US or vice versa, and then they immediately gain a couple of kilos when they go there, or they go here and they immediately lose weight while they haven't really changed their diet or done anything differently.
Yeah.
So, we can hope that RFK he managed to make some changes in terms of that in the US. That's not just an American problem, but specifically there, it's worse than here in terms of finding good produce.
Yeah.
So, but of course, a guiding hand there is, I think, absolutely necessary. It does require some. I'm pretty involved in like what I eat and so on, but still I'm quite blind to what is actually processed, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a lot of misleading marketing. So there's been the wave of vegan and making it seem that vegan is healthy. And it can absolutely be healthy, if you eat a lot of
Yeah.
vegetables, but then there's a lot of ultra processed vegan things. So it really became, so there's all of these trends, right? Of now fiber is a big word. Fiber is the new protein. Now you'll see like ice cream with added fiber. So what marketing does is that you take a trend and you try to bake it into a product that is not necessarily healthy, but you just give the impression to people that that's like a good option. So that's kind of the problem, I would say, in
Yes.
food.
Yeah, and I guess specifically with vegan, there's all of these type of like Beyond Meat where they try to copy a patty so it tastes like a beef patty, but then like yes, it might be vegan, but you look at the list, right, and it's like wow, that's super ultra processed, like much more than a beef patty in
Exactly.
itself would be.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just yeah, just being vegan alone is not a good indicator of health necessarily if you then end up eating all of these processed products. If you just had to do like you mentioned, fiber is one quick way, but like then what's your top three get a good gut health fast? What's your top three hacks?
So number one, I always say count the number of sources of fiber you have in a week. So start counting the types of vegetables you have, the fruit you have, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, legumes. Count how many different types you have in 1 week and try to aim for 30. So, for example, I ate this morning chia seeds was one of them. I ate an apple, was apple, and then it was walnuts. So that's already 3 types of fiber. Chia seeds are amazing. Actually, it's different types of fiber have different roles, so they're not all the same. But that's already 3, right? And in my lunch, I think I have at least 12. So
Oh,
in one day, I will get to maybe 20 sometimes. When I started my journey, I had maybe 8, 10 in a week. So I was eating like tomato, cucumber, avocado, and like potatoes and 2 more or 2, 3 more, right? So when you increase the diversity of fiber sources in your diet, you increase the diversity in your gut microbiome because different microbes thrive on different sources of fiber. So my challenge to you is try to count how many sources of fiber you have in a week and try to aim for 30. Try to go even beyond that. The more fiber and the more diverse type of fiber, the better it is for you. That's number one. Number two is try to incorporate fermented foods. So fermented foods have live bacteria in them, and they have a lot of compounds that the bacteria produce. So things like sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, yogurt, but kefir has more live bacteria. Those are things that can be very beneficial for your gut microbiome, especially if you eat them on a daily basis. They can really help your gut microbiome. Number three, I would say try to limit some ultra processed foods. So try to see in your diet if you eat, for example, chips, candy, packaged foods, packaged cookies, soda. So start from your baseline. If you love them and if you drink, for example, a Coke every day, you don't have to quit it forever. But try to think maybe 2 times a week or 3 times a week. I find an alternative
yeah.
drink. I try to stop it. If I have, chips and I like my snacks, can I have nuts? Can I have like a different type of snack? So try, from your baseline without aiming for perfection, can you reduce those ultra processed foods? Because those ultra processed foods are very harmful for your health, for any organ pretty much in your body. There was a study recently published it was one of the biggest studies that has ever been done on ultra processed foods. And it showed that it had profound health dangers for pretty much every organ in our body, our gut microbiome, our immune system, our brain, our hormones. So the more you can reduce those foods, the better it is. I would say that's my third.
Yeah, and like just with the ultra processed foods, of course, uh, a big part of that belongs to sugar in itself, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. Sugar is a big part of it. So sugar is the first one, right? But then there's a lot of other additives.
mm,
And the fact that if you eat some ultra processed foods, usually they don't have any fiber. So you're basically getting your calories, you're getting full, but you're not getting fiber. So it's also a bit of a trade-off.
yeah. And then there's like the tricks. You mentioned fermented foods, and there's the kombucha, but then there's all the store-bought kombucha with
Yeah.
misleading marketing in a way that because they're still putting a lot of sugar into it. So how would you compare kombucha, which can be healthy for you, to the kombucha you buy in the stores, which is maybe closer to soda?
Yeah, you had such a great question there. And that's another example of how marketing or how big food companies jump on trends
Mm,
and try to market their products to be healthy while they're not. A lot of kombucha products are pasteurized, so the bacteria are killed. If the bacteria are killed, it's not necessarily bad because
mm,
if the product is fermented, it can still have a lot of beneficial compounds in it. But some companies add sugar, add a lot of additives, and it's pretty much, as you
mm,
say, a soda. So you need to look at the ingredient list. And I would say the rule of thumb is that if it has minimal ingredients, that's the best, right? So there can be some sugar in kombucha because that's how you make it, right? So if you make it from scratch, you take tea, you take
mm,
sugar, and then the bacteria ferment the sugar, and then the sugar is converted, but there still can be a little bit of sugar. So that can be okay, but just look for other additives as well. What else is in there? So try to choose something that is as clean as possible with as little ingredients as possible.
yeah. I mean, you could say I'd say it's bordering unethical, if not unethical, that they are showcasing this as something that you think might
Yeah,
actually be healthy to you. I've bought this type of kombucha with from the stores. Of course, it tastes good, but it's like I think, oh
yeah,
yeah, this is probably better than drinking soda, but the difference might not be there at all. So yeah, it's a bit of an eye opener that. But I'm also surprised that they're actually allowed to,
yeah,
market it this way, and it's not just kombucha. I guess there's many other products where it's health washing, if that's
yes.
the name for it. um, so yeah,
Yeah, one of the oldest tricks in the book is to say, vitamin D added, this
mm,
vitamin added, this protein added. That's been
mm,
also in the past, right? Because we've been told that protein is good. So, you will have these yogurts that have a lot of sugar, a lot of additives, and it's pretty much an ultra processed food with protein added. So now it's going to be fiber added because there's fiber is a big trend right now. So these companies basically take some products that are ultra processed and then they add protein or fiber to make it seem like it's almost like a supplement and it's good for you. And people are under that impression. So that's a problem with misleading marketing. And unfortunately, it is out there.
yeah. If we just change the subject a bit, this podcast, as you know, is about European tech founders. And what I like to also bring up, it has a quick talk about, just like brutally honest, what's good, what's bad about building in Europe. You are a Swedish-based company, and you had one of your strategic investor from Aura was from Finland. It seems like there's a good hub of health tech companies coming about from the Nordics. What's the secret ingredient there?
First of all, I'm from Italy, but I studied in Denmark and I grew
Mm,
professionally in Denmark, and now I'm in Sweden. I am very connected to Finland because of the founder of Aura, because of our main
mm,
investor as well. It's Finnish, so I've um, seen a bit the business culture in all the three countries, and I personally love the Nordics because I think what's really special about the Nordics is that you have a very healthful business environment where admin is low, bureaucracy is low, you can move
mm,
fast, you can start a company. There's a lot of support, let's say, for business owners compared to Italy or other
mhm,
countries in Europe. So it's very easy to do business. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of, because it's small countries, it's easy to get support from other unicorn founders and from other entrepreneurs, because everything is kind of smaller in a sense. And then it's also it's easier to get traction as a company, because when you do something new, it makes the headlines. You get on the biggest newspaper. There aren't so many other companies that do the same exact thing. So you get traction pretty fast. Consumers are very open-minded and they want to try new things. They're very digitally savvy. So they're open to innovation. So I would say you can get started something quickly. People are willing to adopt it. People will welcome it, and there's kind of a positive environment. Then I would say the downside is that it's small markets. So eventually, if you want to be a big company, you always have to think global. You need to think Europe. You need to think US. We had our first team member joining from the US yesterday. So now we're in that phase of exploring other markets as well. And I think that's the advantage of the Nordics, really. While in the US, maybe, for example, yes, you might, everything might be bigger, there might be more opportunities and everything, but the market is so saturated. There's so many other people that are fighting like you, and you're just one of the many. So I think in the Nordics, you can really get started and build a solid position. And then if you combine that with a global mindset and with a willingness to go to other countries and not just over customize for the Nordic markets, I think that would really be powerful.
It seems there is a trend right now, and it's funny because I've only been doing this podcast for like a couple of months now. And when I started, it was with the irritation of Europe is like all they do is just like the meme of only creating regulation. But we see a lot of startups that are now getting plenty of funding. There's even like the saying in about Sweden now that it's becoming Silicon Valhalla is like the
Yeah.
quote, and talent going from the US to Europe. So that's kind of it's a very I think happening. It's of course something that has been happening for a long while, but the movement seems to really take pace now. Is that also your experience, or you think it's just been there all along?
I think it's been there all along, but now, especially recently, there's been a string of very good news. So the spirit is very high. And I think it's only gonna increase. I think it's gonna, yeah, continue this way, and it's inevitable. And I think, like, what happens is that when you have a lot of success stories, that creates an ecosystem, because it creates experience in the ecosystem. It creates success stories. It creates motivation for other people to go and try. It creates, this feeling that, oh, I can also do it. I can also succeed. And it just also transfers a lot of knowledge, and it creates talent that then goes to new startups. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's all a positive spiral, I think.
Yes. And I guess that's like also why Silicon Valley became this big thing that
Yeah,
they did that cluster and it all became a big cycle where you had the companies coming out, you got inspired, but then they also had exit money to actually invest into the
yeah,
ecosystem. And I think that's probably been some of the things that have been missing a bit in Europe previously with access to capital being hard to obtain. I still feel we are lacking a lot in Europe compared to US, but like lately with some of the AI companies getting founded here in Europe, it seems like maybe that access to capital is changing. Remains to be seen probably. What's your take on access to capital?
I think that good companies that solve a real problem and have a great team are always going to access capital, I
Mm,
think. As you know, there's been a change from 2021 to now. There's been a bit of a rebalancing in the market. Before, it was much easier to
mm,
get capital. Now it's a bit harder. But I think that companies that have a clear equity story and they have a good plan on how this can become a big company
mhm,
are always going to get access to capital. I think now there's going to probably be more interest in the Nordics and in Sweden and
Yeah,
other countries. So I think it's I'm very optimistic.
great. That's a good thing. I mean, I guess for me, it's also if I had to be a bit skeptical, I'm curious to see how big the companies can take it before they have to take it to Nasdaq or something else. The NYSE, like you often see that yes, there's the initial start, and you can get started when you're small and up to a certain point, but then you reach that point where okay, you just cannot grow and take that amount of capital in Europe, and then you
Right.
see them going on the NYSE or Nasdaq
Yeah.
markets. But that's of course a very different part of the journey of the startup. It's not a startup anymore. Then you're well past the scale up as well.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, for Europe, it's a loss, right? Because
Yeah.
you are then rebasing your companies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, let's see how that plays out. Hopefully, we'll be able to build
Mm,
our own kind of keep the companies also here in Europe. Yeah, there are some incentives also, like some things that push companies to the US. I think in general, just what's interesting about the US is that just also reflecting on my journey, not necessarily about the IPO,
mm,
but more in general, is that it is a very big consumer market that has same language, same currency, same laws and everything. And of course, people say, yeah, there's many markets within it. Yes,
mm,
sure, but regulations are unified. So, for example, even if you think about a health company and you think about becoming a medical company one day, you're dealing with FDA, and we're
mm.
dealing with one country, one regulation, and with one regulatory body. Yeah, sure, you have the EMEA and kind of the European one. However, then when you need to implement your solution and go commercial, you need to deal with different countries, different regulations, different language, different currency, different system. So it's still, I mean, their strength is that it is a big market. It is a big consumer market. Um, Purchasing power is higher. So there are definitely still many reasons that push companies to go there to become really big.
Yeah. But let's leave it on a high note. It's really optimistic and
Yeah.
really great to see the trend of how Europe is performing right now. And I think that's also the takeaway we see at my venture studio and at the parent studio, Bifar Studio. So there's good reason to be optimistic for Europe, which is lovely. Um, on the let's have a bit of a few quick fire questions on before we end and wrap up the podcast. So my first question to you is, what's the worst advice you got as a founder?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the worst advice is always when people push you to take a pre-made playbook and apply it. Oh, these guys did this. You should totally do that. Oh, these guys did this to grow. You should totally do the same. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. So I think a lot of people, especially people that have not started a company, um, they make this connection of, oh, this company grew a lot doing this, just apply their playbook. But what I found is that you need to find what works for you, your team, your product, your market, your customers. That is the work, right? So anything that is applying predefined schemes or playbooks does not work well in an early stage startup. And I think at first, when I first started, I took investors' opinions, um, yeah, or all of these opinions from, so to speak, experts, investors, advisors very seriously. While now I have learned to listen to everyone, but not to immediately jump to their advice and do what they say.
Yes. I think that's a good take because they all very well meaning and they probably think
Yeah,
that it's correct what they're saying to you, but yeah, you still have to filter it into your given situation. And I guess as an experienced founder and CEO, you know that yeah, I don't need to take any advice. I need to figure out how that fits in. Second question. One book every health tech founder should read.
I don't know if there's a difference between health tech and other founders. I love the book that changed my life is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
That's a great
Uh,
book.
yeah, I think it's great. It's amazing, and it really can change your view and take about life and how you go about things. And building a company is a journey, and I think it can really help you understand that following your intuition is really important, and following your kind of mission is really important. I found that one of the most helpful shifts I made was to really trust my experience and my intuition, because I have been sick. I know how a person feels when they have that situation, and I've recovered. So at first, I was again like getting advice from a lot of people. And then over time, I realized, wait a second, these people have not built this company, have not built a similar company. So, now I'm just going to trust myself, and I'm going to trust what I would have wanted as a customer, what I would have wished for. So I think it's something about trusting your intuition, trusting your path, and not overly um, planning or attaching to certain outcomes. I'm not sure about health tech founders. I think that the first layer is really to be a good entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah, I was expecting some more scientific book, but you went with the full philosophy angle, so that was unexpected but cool. The third question, what's the biggest myth about gut health?
The biggest myth is that uh, you can only fix it through probiotics. I hate this one.
Mm,
So many people ask me, which probiotics should I take for gut health? And what I say is, if your gut is imbalanced, no probiotic will fix it. Because probiotics just go in and go out. They can help, they do something helpful. Some probiotics are extremely helpful. But the fastest way and better way to change your gut health is to change your diet. That's the reality. That's the food to the microbes. So that's the biggest myth I see.
okay. All right. I think on that note, we can wrap up the podcast. Thank you so much for joining, Nora. It was a pleasure to hear your story, and I really wish you all the best. And I'll probably become a client as well. Me, my wife, and my daughter. It's
Thank you,
uh,
Peter.
it's it's a super mission you're on.
Thank you so much, Peter, for having me. Great questions.